Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second podcast of our new show, Time Out with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azalina, I'm Derek Gano. And before we get started, we wanted to thank everyone for the support we received after our first show. We couldn't have imagined how popular it would be, and all the positive feedback that we got. We thought it was fitting to name our show Time Out because not only are we happy to take time out of our days to talk about a subject that we very much love in sports, but that everyone wants to take time out of your busy days to sit down, put your worries aside, and listen to our soothing voices. So I know I speak for Joe when I say from the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much. But without further ado, here's what we have planned for this week's episode of Time Out with Derek and Joe.
All right, Derek. Yep, we definitely have a pretty interesting episode. We're gonna start out with the 2020 trade deadline, which was done at 4:00 yesterday afternoon, and I believe that there's some interesting things that happen. I know that you do too. And basically, the trade deadline, for our audience that doesn't really know about it, is in Major League Baseball, you have only a window to make trades, and August 31st is usually the deadline. But this season, with a 2-month season, it was a little more hectic for GMs, and we will get into that a little bit in a couple minutes, I should say, really soon. And also then we also have a really interesting topic that we thought of last week, and we're going to highlight our favorite baseball team, Derek, who is decked out in his Seattle Mariners attire, shirts hanging, hat, and everything.
Plenty of shirts back there. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
And I'm
Showing
rocking my
love.
Fighting Phil's t-shirt, as you'll see in the video. But anyway, Derek, let's get into our top 5 winners of the MLB trade deadline.
And so when we say we're going into winners and losers of the trading deadline, so to be a winner, just for those who don't know, it's you made a good trade, or you dealt away players that you didn't really need, or losers that we may find are teams who didn't do enough maybe in our minds if they want to make a run towards the World Series, or ones that made dumb trades. So, well, let's get started with that. So we have here our trade deadline winners. We have 5 for each of us. 5 for me, 5 for Joe. I'm going to go through my 5 first, and then we'll go with Joe. So the first winner of the trading deadline, in my opinion, I think we both had them, Joe, was the San Diego Padres. Wow.
I did not have them. Right?
Were they busy?
I mean,
so
I don't know. We have 3 different. I mean, there's the blockbuster trade that just happened the other day, but let's touch on what about them getting the closer, former Cardinal, and Trevor Rosenthal. He's a veteran guy. He's going to help them.
Yeah.
Back into
Trevor
the games,
Rosenthal. Yeah, Trevor Rosenthal from the Kansas City Royals. He is probably going to step into the closer role, if not maybe a little bit by committee. But he's definitely going to be someone who they're going to use down the stretch, and someone who, with the Cardinals, has been in the big games. So that's a pretty good pickup for them. They also picked up
prospect.
Mitch. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Edward Olivares. He's just an outfielder. I don't know much about him, but that's not a lot probably to give up for San Diego for what they got back. You're right. So yeah, you said Mitch Moreland, definitely.
Mitch Moreland from Boston. Boston. He's probably going to have the DH role, maybe share some time at first base. They also brought in Jason Castro, who was a catcher from the Los Angeles Angels. He may do a little bit of catching, hitting again. Now he's a left-handed batter, so he'll probably hit more against the righties. And then my boy, Austin Nola will
Yes,
be
brother of
catching
Aaron
against the left-handers, brother of Aaron Nola. Yes.
Nola.
Um, Austin Nola, as well as Adams and Altavilla, who are two relief pitchers for my Mariners, were sent off to San Diego. We got some pretty good prospects.
Taylor
Taylor
Trammell.
Trammell was
Let me, yeah.
num-
Let me tell you.
the main.
Yep. Yeah. Let me tell you real quick, Derek, that Taylor Trammell was rumored last year in talks for JT Realmuto, but they didn't want to do it. And again, I know we didn't touch on it, but I will say that the Padres sent out Austin Hedges, the 28-year-old catcher. So like they have an idea with what they're doing, but it's just interesting to see Trammell not go for JT, but then he's in this deal. So
Yeah,
the Padres
yeah.
have a lot of assets.
I will say I'm pretty happy with the haul for a guy who was more of a utility infielder a year ago. Granted, he's really built into the catcher role for us this year with Tom Murphy going down, broke some sort of bone. And then while they did get another relief pitcher from us, Taylor Williams, which I found funny because just a couple of days ago, Taylor Williams had the lead with 2 outs in the ninth inning, 7-3, and ended up giving up like 7 runs in a row to the Padres and blew the save for us. And now they're trading for him. So.
Unbelievable.
But then their big Mick guy was Mike Clevenger. They brought on from Cleveland. He's had some issues in Cleveland recently with not off the field, not really. Well, we don't want to dive into that, but coronavirus related. So, but they ended up. He may be the number 1, number 2 starter out there in San Diego now.
Yeah, I think he jumps. They have Paddock, who I have seen because of the Phillies being in the National League. I will say that Chris Paddock's at probably a 2. I would say Clevenger jumps in at 1. And that being said, if people have never watched him pitch, he's electric. And somebody said the other day on the show on ESPN, basically that the Braves got him, they would have been in the World Series this year. So he's a game changer, and he's he's a guy that's going to be interesting. They got 6 guys, Derek.
They got a lot of guys
cleaned up. They cleaned up.
They received, according to MLB.com, they received the Padres from the Padres farm system. Their number 7, number 9, and number 11 prospects.
One of the guys stands
out. The backup catcher you mentioned,
Hedges, right? One of the guys that stands out is Gabriel Arias. He's a shortstop, and now Tatis is there, Machado's there.
Yeah,
he's not playing, so that I understand him in the deal, but he could be someone the Indians look at when Lindor goes because we know he's going. But Cal Quantrell's another name. He's a 25-year-old pitcher, and just again, since we're going to talk about our favorite teams later, his dad used to pitch for the Phillies the one time in the bullpen. So that's just an aside. But yeah, Cal Quantrill is a decent arm. I wouldn't and real quick, the Boston Red Sox didn't get back no-name players for Moreland. They got an outfielder named Jessian Rosario and third baseman Hudson Potts. Put 2 names that we don't know, but I mean, they're guys that were in their yeah, you just don't know about prospects. All prospects, don't get me started on prospects.
So San Diego brought in a haul, needless to say. So both of us do have San Diego on our winners list. Yeah. My second winner I do have as the Blue Jays. They made a couple moves, including a couple with my Seattle Mariners. They traded for Taijuan Walker, who's probably going to end up being their number 2, number 3 starter. Great prospect when he came up with us, and then he left. He got a few Tommy John surgeries. And then he made his way back this year and was finally healthy. So I'm glad to see him get a chance and win somewhere, hopefully. So I'd like to see him do well.
A lot of talent.
Yes, there was. Robbie Ray is another pitcher, so you could tell Toronto really went for that starting pitching to go behind Ryu.
Right.
Robbie Ray is probably going to be a 4 or 5. He's kind of had a down year. He's prone to the home run ball a little bit. So
Walks a lot of
I'm
guys
not
too.
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's like up there. The stadium's up like there in Buffalo, but
I know
I don't know
it's
if it's
not
a pitcher stadium
not
or
like
what.
Rogers
But
Center. Let's put it that way.
right.
You know, I
So
mean, yeah, yeah, he's
I don't think that Arizona got much back there. I think that was more of a salary relief
yeah,
deal.
left hand pitcher. But they got remember Toronto also got Villar or
Yes,
VR. He's the
yes.
outfielder,
Uh,
former Phillies prospect, Mar-
mhm.
Marlin guy, but he's a guy that can hit with Biggio and Bichette, and he might be an interesting guy in that 2 hole. I'm thinking.
Yeah, he's probably going to fill in there. Well, obviously, until Bichette comes back. I know he's probably going to be out at least a few more weeks, I think.
Right, he
So,
was
but
hurt.
once Bichette comes back, it's pretty nice to have someone, a switch hitter who can,
Yeah,
has a bunch of pop, can steal some bases, can play first,
fast
second, short, third.
center.
So that's a nice spat to have.
Yeah.
My next winner I have here is the Phillies.
Mhm.
Granted, did they do a ton? No. But I think it's going to help them. They brought in Workman and Hembry from Boston,
Can we say
as
real quick,
well
since this is
as
my, can we say real quick? Not, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to.
no. Go ahead.
In the fact that this is my favorite team, I'm all on board of getting these guys. But if our bullpen was taken care of in the off season, we might be in a better position. But that's for another show, maybe. Connor Siebold, when you mentioned Workman, and I know we discussed this off of our show, but let me tell you something. Connor Siebold is going to make us not sleep at night as Phillies fans because he's a guy with a lot of talent and he's going to be a good pitcher. And I'm happy to ship Nick Pivetta anywhere. So good luck, Boston, Nick Pivetta. But no, and
I'll
you're,
be a Cy Young contender,
oh, why not? I mean, Marlon Byrd was an MVP candidate after he left Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
But no,
Now,
yeah, we're
I assume he's the number 23 prospect that I'm seeing got sent over, Siebold.
right, exactly. And but you're right though, what you said before, and I agree with this in a way. Like you got to give up somebody to get somebody, and I'm always like, I get it, but when you're the Phillies and you did address your bullpen a couple times, and we're going to talk about a couple more guys they brought in, but you got to address the starting rotation now because, and not to get too lengthy, but they don't have enough. We don't have Aaron Noah, Zach Wheeler, great 1-2 punch. I'm very happy.
Mm-hmm.
But Eflin, unproven still.
Yeah.
Jake Arrieta, let's not go there. And Spencer Howard will be really good, but he needs time. So, but anyway,
You like to
let's get
have
back
at
to
least 3 going into a postseason.
Mike Minor, Derek. We'll get to him later, but I wanted Mike Minor in that rotation.
Well, the last one that I see the Phillies brought in was David Phelps. Definitely one of Girardi's guys. He's followed him from New York where he had him, and then he went to Miami, and then now he's with the Phillies again. So he was a Mariner for a year before he realized, oh, I'm not going to win here. So then they shipped him off somewhere else.
Was in Milwaukee this season too and doing well in
yes,
Milwaukee.
He was in Milwaukee. Two, I didn't get the names, but 2 lesser prospects supposedly got for him. So someone who's going to probably fill in, I would say probably the 6th and 7th inning or so, not a
maybe the 8th if Maris decides not to pitch
maybe
well.
The 8th. Yeah.
you don't
Neris
know.
is probably in the 8th with Workman in the 9th now. So, yeah, the Phillies were my other winner here. Moving on to the next one. I threw in the Reds. Last minute deal. They brought in Archie Bradley, who's a closer from Arizona. As I know in my fantasy league, Raciel Iglesias is kind of a firecracker. You never know when he's going to go off. So, well, I should say someone will go off against him. So he's got electric stuff, but if
he's young though.
Now, yes. And are they going to bring in Bradley to close? I'm not sure. They're only 2.5 games out of the wild card.
That Central's gonna be wild.
So yeah, it's pretty tight with the Cardinals are only 13-13. So um, every little thing could matter. They also brought in Brian Goodwin, who is kind of a utility guy from the Angels, I believe. So um, well, every little bit helps. Suarez, I know the third baseman, he's starting to hit again. You got
Otto,
some big arms in
Howard.
Castillo and Bauer, but there's plenty of talent out there. Joey Votto, man, you would love to see Joey Votto in the playoffs. Poor guy can't catch a break now. He's at the end of his career, and they kind of went for it. They got Moustakas out there, so
my favorite players. Yeah, Moustakas
I
is great.
I do hope that they can make a run at the playoffs here. And my last trade deadline winner was actually the Boston Red Sox. You might not agree with that, but granted, they only gave away things. They didn't bring anything in because right now they're sitting at wonderful 12-23. I don't know if we have any Red Sox fans who will be listening to this that may not like that, but I think now they traded away Kevin Pillar to Colorado. They really just got cash back. They traded away Mitch Moreland for a smaller prospect that you mentioned. They traded Workman and Hembry for Pivetta and a number 23 prospect, Seabold, you said?
Yeah.
So I think more to the point, they traded away parts they didn't need, and you never know what you may get out of people like Pivetta or the prospects, but they didn't go for it, I think is like being in Boston, there's a ton of pressure to have a winning team. And now that it's been a year or two that they're kind of struggling, I'm sure the fans are getting restless up there.
You traded Betts. That was a big, I mean, I understand. Yeah. I get it.
And that was the start.
That was huge. Like, you're going to have to, maybe they could sign Lindor, move Bogarts around somehow.
And I think that's what they have to think about. You don't want to go for it this year when they're already the 8 games out behind the Yankees. They weren't getting in the playoffs.
They don't have starting pitching.
They realize that.
Yeah, they don't have starting pitching.
Rather than sitting still like someone like the Rangers did or whatever, who's also out of it, they got rid of a few pieces, and you never know what can come back.
Yeah, they hung on to Martinez. They hung on to Bogart. I have a really good friend that's a Yankees fan or a Red Sox fan, and he keeps saying to me they better not trade Bogarts. They didn't trade him, so you got to be happy that Devers is a hell of a player.
There's still a bunch of really good players there, and I'm glad they didn't sell any of them off. Benintendi's been struggling, but you never know. He had 2 very good seasons.
Got talent.
So you never know. You bring in a couple. Well, you need a couple pitchers. Chris Sale comes back next year off Tommy John.
Go get Marcus Stroman. He's out there.
Never know.
Yeah, Chris
Stroman. Yeah.
Bauer's gonna be a free agent. Like they're Boston will spend money, and I'm gonna say this too, and I'm gonna choke on my words, but if JT Realmuto doesn't sign a contract with the Phillies, Boston will go after him.
Yep.
Play him at first base. You don't need to catch. Vasquez is a good catcher. You don't have to catch him. I mean,
I'm sure they got a solid $500,000 for Kevin Pillar that they may throw towards.
Hey, Hein, you're up. Yeah.
Well, all right, Joe. What do you got for your trade deadline winners here? First,
well, we're not going to be too long on number 1 and 2 because I have what you have. I got the San Diego Padres number 1. Mike Clevinger, absolutely stud. I'll root for the Padres in the playoffs just because of the young team they have. If they in fact get there and make a run, but that's gonna be awesome to watch him pitch. Number 2 is the Phils. I wish they would have done a little more, but I'm not going to be all the way greedy. Just because I know that it takes a little bit of time to build a bullpen, and that's what they're trying to do, and hope they can hang on to a guy like Hembry. My 3rd team is the Oakland A's, and listen, this is what makes me upset. And I don't know if I told you, but the A's, I'm gonna find it here. The A's traded they got Tommy LaStella from the Angels, and that's an okay move. That's a Billy Beane type of
Solid utility player. Yep.
But they traded Mike Minor, Texas did, okay, Texas, to Oakland for a second base prospect that I figured out was Connor Siebold, an organization. So we could have given them 18 or 19 and maybe got Mike Minor. But no, the A's are one of those teams that you want to root for. They haven't been great, but they're always right there. They're always on the cusp. No, well, yeah.
I don't care about Moneyball, Joe.
Right,
or Brad Pitt or whatever. No.
All right.
Mariners.
All right, there you go. All right, fine. The Mariners. All right. No, but the Miami Marlins would be my fourth team. And I know you had the Reds, and I will say I didn't remember Archie Bradley, so I didn't jot that down, but that was a good move by Cincinnati. But Miami, listen, even though you traded for VR, and right now they did give up left-hand pitcher Caleb Smith. Caleb Smith is a good lefty, and also a right-hand pitcher by the name of Humberto Mejia. Again, not too much on him, but they got back arguably the best center fielder in the game in Starling Marte. The guy's hitting over 300 right now. So
not
the
Marlins,
bad
consolation.
Exactly. The Marlins are going to be tough, and I'm concerned about them in the NL East. And my last team
in the future
would be
this year or in the future.
Well, the future, but their pitching has gotten a lot better. Alcantara, Sandy Alcantara. They have Sixto Sanchez.
I watched his first couple games. Woo-hoo.
Unbelievable. We don't develop that, Derek. The Phillies don't develop that type of fastball. No, but anyway, the bottom line is the Marlins are going to be good in a couple of years. They're going to get more veterans. They'll add some young guys, but Marte helps them this year. And I'm going to make a bold prediction right now, even though we'll talk about it in future shows. The Marlins sneak in as a wild card in the National League. I'm going to say that. They're going to sneak in as a wild card.
Currently, they are 15-15, so they do have a slot in the playoffs right now.
Telling you, heard it here on timeout.
You heard it here on timeout.
Mariners, your Mariners. I'm giving a winner because you got some prospects back. We don't know. You don't know how much they'll pan out, but I just got to give the Mariners and Jerry DiPoto a little credit here. They didn't do a terrible job.
Yeah, I'm excited for Trammell. They say he's kind of he became more of a pole hitter last year, so his hitting's kind of gone down, but he's a speedy outfielder. Right? I saw him as left-handed. He may be a switch hitter. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But I see him more as, because with what we have coming up now, we have Kyle Lewis up there right now. Jared Kelenic is a very athletic left-handed bat who is maybe 1 or 2 years away.
Edwin Diaz deal, right?
Yes, he came over from the Mets in the Edwin Diaz and Robbie Cano deal. And then Julio Rodriguez, who is a physical beast, will be in right field. He can really pop. He has a ton of pop. So I'm really excited for those three. I see Trammell as being a very good fourth outfielder, a guy who has a ton of speed, who you can put out there defensively in the late innings or get you some steals. A Roman Quinn type. I mean, I hope he can hit a little better than Roman Quinn. But
yeah, me too. I would say, yeah, exactly. I hope so too.
But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I really liked what we got back in that deal.
Yeah, Mariners are wheeling and dealing as usual.
So we move on to our losers in the trade deadline. Again, teams that we thought maybe didn't do enough or were a little gun shy and didn't get rid of anything that maybe they should have done. But Joe, we'll start off with you.
Well, I have one of my least favorite teams, the Atlanta Braves.
You're not sad that they're on the losers list, I'm sure.
That tomahawk chop is always getting to me. Goes right through me just like a Chalk on a chalkboard. No, the Braves got Tommy Malone. And I swear,
Yeah.
if you poll a lot of the United States, they would have no idea, as a baseball fan, who Tommy Malone is. So, no,
traveler.
They have a lot of injuries. Hamill's back is injured. Soroka hurt his knee really bad. He's out for the season. Yeah. He's our ace. That's a Cy Young Award winner.
Fultonowicz is back at the camp.
He was such a good arm. I don't know what happened to him. Max Fried's a beast, and when him and Soroka are healthy, it's going to be interesting to see 1-2 of them. But their offense are going to carry them. But it could be like last year; they might run up against a team like LA or
you need pitching.
Maybe the Phils. It's going to come down to pitching. And right now,
you saw it. Was that the last game of the series against the Cardinals last year? They gave up 10 runs in the first inning or something.
Yeah. It looked like Arietta the other night. Yeah. And Marcell Ozuna crushed his new team now because, he's hitting well. But, we'll talk about the Braves. I keep saying future shows. We're definitely going to have some good shows coming up when the playoffs come around. But I'm telling you right now, Atlanta will be there. It just depends on how much pitching they can get. But they're my first loser, Derek, and it's not even close. The second one, what about those Anaheim Angels? Mike Trout has to be killing.
Poor guy.
They could have traded Bundy away. I would have took him, Derek. I would have took him. Dylan Bundy.
They're going to send Mike Trout back home to Philadelphia, and I'm going to go nuts. In a good way, because I don't want to see him every other week, playing in Los Angeles. I'm fine with that.
If Mike Trout would come to Philadelphia, I might not have a voice for a month. I would be ecstatic. No, I'm happy with Harper and what we got. No, but honestly, you can't tell me that La Stella was good enough. You could have traded a Drillin Simmons. Everybody forgets about him, and he's a good shortstop.
Yeah, good defensive shortstop.
Exactly. You just got to do a little more there. Anaheim, Joe Mana's got to be out of his mind. He goes from Chicago.
Like you said, Dylan Bundy has been kind of a crapshoot in Baltimore the past couple weeks or past couple years, but he's finally pitching well again. So you might as well trade him while you're.
Former first-round pick, though, wasn't he? Was he first-round pick?
Yeah. Oh, a ton of talent, and maybe that's what they're thinking is eventually down, or they think he's gonna be one of their studs down the line. And okay, well,
then guess what?
You're still in not great shape.
No, that's what that's two. There's no doubt about the Angels are two. And well, Derek, I disagree with the winner in this one. Listen, the Cincinnati Reds to me had a shot to really make a statement in their division, right? The Brewers are okay. The Cubs are probably going to be up there. The Cardinals aren't too good. I mean, and I think I might be missing one other team in the division.
Brewers.
Thank you. Oh no, Brewers, Cardinals, Reds.
Oh, the Pirates.
Oh, the Pirates. So really, it was the Reds. Maybe the Reds felt like they had enough. Their pitching's fine. Getting Archie Bradley is a big move, and it happened so late. Like I said, I didn't jot it down. I thought they would go after a Jose Martinez or that type of player that could play a little infield, a little outfield. They got Nick Williams. He went there when the Phillies DFA'd him. But no, to me, they just didn't do enough for where they are. Maybe they just felt
maybe you either got to go all in or sell off if you're thinking, huh?
Right. I like that mentality for the team they put together. Like you said, Votto, Moustakas, that type of team. Suarez, you got
lots of talent.
Got a talented team. I haven't seen a Reds game, and I'm kind of dying to watch them. I really like the Reds. But yeah, so the Reds are the third. All right, now this is one that I will never be sorry for. Too many friends, too many family members.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of them are going to say the same thing, honestly.
Well, they got guys hurt everywhere, right? You got shortstop. I was holding my breath that we didn't trade Didi away because he's one of my favorite players. I love how he plays the game. Here's the bottom line. If you're the New York Yankees, you're probably making the playoffs. Maybe Stanton or Judge gets healthy. But wouldn't you take a shot at Marte? what do you take a shot at a Lance Lynn or a Mike Minor?
How many times are you going to let Giancarlo Stanton get hurt
I
before
will.
we bring in someone who could replace him?
And like you're talking about guys that really, and like I'll throw out a name that a lot of people might not know, but he's a Philly. Adam Hazley's a good outfielder. You could have gave us probably a bag of baseballs. We would have traded him. He's a 24-year-old. The Yankees would probably make into like a superstar. Like he's a good hitter. He's a college guy, but you know, there's certain.
And then the pitching. I mean, my
Tanaka's
boy
hurt every time he's
Paxton is
around.
down. Tanaka's hurt.
Always hurt. Yeah.
You know,
Cole can't do it by
Severino
himself.
never made it through. Yeah, it can't be Cole. He can't pitch every inning. You know, and
Exactly. And I think that's the big thing. And I think we were shown last year real quickly. The Nationals won the World Series because they had a complete team, right? The Yankees are a little bit further away, I think, than even Yankee fans want to imagine.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was an easy one. Oh, and this one. Again, these owners, it's a tough year. I get it. Pandemic, shortened season. I know you have your losers. I'm going to be quick. The Cardinals need to do something. Just do something.
Yeah, they're 500.
Do you know where Lance Lynn started his career?
St. Louis.
Exactly. And that's all I got to say. They could have got Lance Lynn back.
They still got, well, more power to them. They still got Adam Wainwright going out there every five days. He threw a complete game the other day, but
Adam
he's
Wainwright
40 years old.
He's like Trevor Hoffman.
So going into my losers here, you just brought them up. The Washington Nationals, being the champion last year, you want to defend your title, don't you?
Don't
you, Washington?
Well,
but it didn't seem like it.
The attitude. No, the question I have for you is, isn't Steven Strasburg done? Like, what do you do? Like,
yeah,
it can't be Scherzer all the time.
Put all that money into someone who is only going to be good for 15 games a year. But they are 12-20. Maybe that's what they were looking at. But they're only 4 games behind the Marlins. It's literally
players. They just don't have a complete.
Yeah, it's literally Scherzer and Corbin.
And then their lineup is Soto and Turner, you know.
Yeah.
They're the two studs.
You need – I mean, I looked at their lineup the other day. They got Howie Kendrick hitting third and Asdrubal Cabrera hitting fifth. I'm like, what? Bring in another bat to cover these guys.
It sounds like the 2018 Phillies.
Yeah, maybe if it were – yeah, if it were 2010, okay, but – you know, in the heart of a lineup that a team that is trying to defend their title, just made me think that no, I guess they're not really going for it. This isn't their year.
Rendon left, and I think they didn't know what to do. And then Chris Bryant never was going to come to Washington, like because the Cubs wanted to keep him, I think. And there's a couple of things that, again, another show would be a better subject on that. But bottom line is, I totally agree with you. The Nationals, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So, and I agree with you there. My next pick. Well, you probably like that I have a couple of NL East teams in here. So
I do.
Only good for you. Yeah, I agree with the Braves. Tommy Milone is not enough. He's been on 30 teams in the past 10 years. So they needed a little bit more on the rotation to get going. I think they may struggle a little bit down the stretch here. I definitely don't. Even if they do make the playoffs, they are 3 games up on the Marlins and the Phillies. But I really don't see them going very far because they don't have the pitching, and you can't win without pitching. At least 3 starters you need to get you through, or a very good bullpen. And I don't think
they do have a really good bullpen, though. They do.
They do. But
they have some good names out there. Yeah. You don't want to fall behind. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now this one was a little interesting. I put the Dodgers on there. Now the Dodgers did absolutely nothing.
But what do you do when you're the best team in baseball? You have 10 losses.
Okay, I agree. Now they did trade Ross Stripling, who was back end rotation guy. Hasn't been very good this year to Toronto, but my thinking was not Seattle, San Diego made all these moves. Yeah. Colorado made a couple moves. They brought in Givens from Baltimore.
Big move there for Colorado.
They brought in Kevin Pillar, fourth outfielder. Granted, none of those are probably good enough to put Colorado above, but I would think they kind of go for it. And I thought even if it were one or two things, you can never have too much pitching. That's just my opinion. Maybe some people think, well, they didn't really have anything to get, and that's why they're the best in baseball. But my thinking was put yourself over the top. You never know. Couldn't get past the Nationals last year. Maybe the Nationals, well, maybe not the Nationals, but maybe a team comes back with those three pitchers, shuts your lineup down. You never know. But that was just my opinion. I also had the Yankees in there. Not enough pitching. I think they needed a trade for some pitching. You brought up his name, Lance Lynn, who plenty of people had their eyes on, I'm sure. A good mid-rotation starter, going to eat up innings. No one grabbed him, and I was kind of shocked. I thought the Yankees might be one to dive in there, but and I have to wonder, is it going to be enough? Are they going to have enough pitching healthy down the stretch? Will be interesting. And my last one was the Houston Astros, who, what do I say about the Houston Astros? I don't much care for that team. I don't think much of baseball does at this point. But being a couple games behind the Athletics right now, 2.5, I think, their pitching has been good, but they have a lot of rookies in that bullpen and in that starting rotation. And you don't like having too many rookies in come playoff time. Granted, and I've heard this in a lot of places, if there were a year to have them, maybe this is the year when there's no people in the stands and they don't have to think about it too much. Right. But that was my thinking. There's a lot of rookies there. Maybe you wanted to bring in a couple more veterans to eat up some innings, and you never know about innings limits. I doubt they would run into those now, but anyway, those were our winners and our losers of the trading deadline, and we're going to move into our next topic. Our next topic will be talking about both of our favorite teams here. Obviously, my favorite team, as you can see by the several shirts behind me and my wonderful hat here. I got my Nike Mariners baseball shirt here. Felix Hernandez is back there. I'm a Seattle Mariners fan. It's been rough. It's been rough going.
I got to ask you right away. Though, because it's bothering me. What made you become a Seattle Mariners fan, knowing that they're so far, and unless you get like a major league big ticket, I would think you wouldn't be able to see many games. So what made you be a Seattle?
I do have MLB TV the past bunch of years, so I do see them. But granted, and that's one thing that drives me nuts. I really wish they would start games at like 9, and that would be nice. It's still 6:00 over there, so what's the big deal?
Right.
I don't know,
right.
But
Love the 10.
Well, I started being a Mariners fan. I give everyone the same response. I was a big Griffey fan. I loved the Griffey swing. One of the nicest guys in the world in baseball, and everyone loved him. And and honestly, they were good when I was young. And in around 96, 97, when I was 5 or 6, yeah, I was a big fan when they were under Lou Piniella. He was there for What about since 2002? Um, no, up till 2002.
Great manager.
But they did very well under him. Since he's left, they've actually had 9 managers since
Yeah.
2002. I gave you a bunch of the names.
The lot.
Have Lloyd McClendon, Eric Wedge, uh, Riggleman, or is Riggleman? No, that might be somebody else. But Don Wakamatsu, yeah, and now they got Scott Service, who I don't really mind. But so yeah, that's really what. And then I stuck with them. I don't leave teams. We've really struggled. I got the stat here that the Mariners started in 1997, 44 seasons in Major League Baseball. They've had 14 winning seasons. 14. Maybe only like 8 or 9 while I've been alive. So I mean, but hey, I just think of it as when they do come around and which I hope to see in the near future here.
Yeah, next 5 years.
They are, I like to think that it'll feel really good following this team for so long, and finally they break through.
Well, I also will tell you the Griffey thing. You'll know this name, and I have to give him a shout out because it's one of my best friends, Brian Tchaikovsky, is a huge Seattle Mariners fan, and he loves Ken Griffey Jr. And off of that, I know he's one. Who are your other 4 favorite Seattle Mariners players of all time?
Well, I can't name just 5. I do
for podcast purposes, Derek.
All right, I'll speed it up a little bit. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right, I got a couple honorable mentions here. One you'll really like, former Philly Jamie Moyer.
Yes,
it was sweet. 145 wins he had for us. I was kind of shocked when he had that many wins, most in
great guy
in our history. But
great guy.
How awesome is it to see a guy who throws 80 miles an hour just paint those corners and you can't hit it? It was amazing. I loved watching him pitch. He was only there for a couple years when I was younger, but
I know
awesome to watch.
I know when he came to Philly, and I'm not breaking up the Mariners thing by any chance because I knew this was going to come up. There's a couple guys that have crossed Philly's Mariners path. One on the TV right now, but Jamie Moyer won a World Series finally.
Yeah,
in Philly. So he paid his dues in Seattle and won a World Series in Philly.
Yep. Now, and my other honorable mention here was, and maybe not too popular amongst people, but Alex Rodriguez. I really liked watching Alex Rodriguez. Granted, he was the half the weight he was when he was in the Rangers and Yankees uniform, but when he played shortstop, he was one of the best gloves in baseball.
People forget about
Jeter and Garcia Parra and Vizquel.
Yeah.
What a crew that I did write a stat down. In 1998, he had 46 steals, which you don't think of A-Rod. You think a home run hitter, but he had 46 steals for us. He was really a fast runner.
Like Chucky Carr back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Those guys, that type of player. Wow.
Now, number 5, I kind of went back and forth with all these. Number 5, on the opposite end of Jamie Moyer, the soft-throwing lefty, you got Randy Johnson, who threw triple digits every time he was out there. How intimidating that must have been, going out to face that 6'10" mammoth out there on the mound, and even taller when he's standing on a mound.
That's John Kruk in the All-Star game. I never laughed so hard in my life.
Yes. You remember that video that went out? I think it was spring training when he like blew up a bird with his fastball.
I do remember that. Oh yes,
I don't know if he was playing for the Mariners at that time. It might have been the Diamondbacks or something. But I remember that bird just. And talk about the timing of that, just how impossible that was. But he led the team with 19 shutouts. And obviously, so they traded him to Houston after our, we didn't win, but
Right.
those 95 through 97 teams, when you had Ken Griffey and Edgar Martinez and Jay
Eno.
Buhner and a young A-Rod, Randy Johnson. How do you not win with those teams? I mean, we've got as far as we've ever been. I told you, I actually a few months ago, MLB Network had the game where they finally got over the hump and beat the Yankees in the division series,
The Indians.
double by Edgar down the line, and Griffey comes running around. How awesome! Now I was like 5 when that happened, so I wasn't really
I
into
was
it.
young
But
too,
how
though. I was
awesome
maybe
that must have
well.
been!
I was probably like maybe in like junior high. Like yeah, I wasn't that
Yeah,
much. I mean, I was in high school at the earliest, but yeah, latest. But yeah, I mean,
but
that was
yeah.
exciting team. That was an
No, that's the
exciting team.
farthest we've ever gone was the championship series. We ended up, like you said, ended up losing to the Indians,
That's
who
a
ended
great
up
Indians
losing to the
team, though.
Marlins.
That's a great
But
Indians
yeah,
team.
yeah.
That was
And
not an easy team.
now I will say I split up my Mariners that I followed into 3 different eras here. You got the Griffey era, which was mid to late 90s. Then you had the Ichiro era, who
Big
is
one, yeah.
further
That was a
down my
big one.
list here. When they had Brett Boone, Jamie Moyer, Edgar was still there. And that was our 2001 season when we still hold the record for the most wins in the regular season, 116. What did we win? Nothing. We did. So does it much matter? I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't, you know, say that they didn't want. Would they have rather won a World Series? Yeah, probably. But and then, so we are on the longest playoff drought in the 4 major sports. That would be basketball, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB. 19 seasons since the Seattle Mariners have made the
The
playoffs.
Cubs have been there and they did it. The Red Sox have been there and they did it. The Mariners just need to
Yep.
get probably more pitching and develop talent, and
Yep.
they might do it eventually. Hopefully
Now,
for you.
and then my last era there was the Felix era. And that would bring me to my number 4 favorite player for the Mariners, Felix Hernandez. And the poor guy never whiffed the playoffs. We've just haven't been able to reach there. But
Some great moments
since
though.
18, yeah, he was there
That's
for
the thing.
about
Like
14 seasons. He was on our team. The no-hitter against the Padres. I remember specifically every time he went to Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium, he dominated. And I love,
big
because
stage.
of course they're the big stage, the big teams. I you could tell he wanted to play there, but he remained dedicated and hoping that we would eventually make the playoffs, but we just couldn't do it. And so we wanted to keep pitching. We wanted to have him retire, but he wanted to. So I think he opted out this year for Corona. But he was looking like he was going to make the rotation in Atlanta.
I know, and then he
So
got
good
hurt.
for him. He was really struggling for
Yeah,
us the past few
yeah.
years, and it was
He
a
might be
shame to
done.
watch because
Might
a
be
guy who
done.
was so dominant. Yeah.
Maybe you
But
put him
I
in the
loved
bullpen
watching
and
him.
just let him throw it inning here and there, to see if he has
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Great pitcher, one of the
Now
best pitchers.
my number 3 was maybe more for the longevity, was Edgar Martinez.
Yeah.
Granted, he didn't play the field, and that was part of the reason why he may not have he almost didn't get into the Hall of Fame, but finally he did, luckily. But great hitters, so many doubles and average he would hit for.
He was clutch.
So
Like he
many
was just
records.
clutch.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
just got
great
big hits
hitter.
at big times, right? Like just big,
Yeah,
big hits. Great,
great hitter.
great player. Great player.
These last couple were very difficult, but Ichiro I have Ichiro at number 2. When he came, he was now in 2001, they didn't have any of those guys. No Griffey, no Jay Buhner, no Randy Johnson, no A-Rod, and they still won 116 games. Well, that was Ichiro coming in from the Japanese league, Rookie of the Year, MVP, 56 stolen bases he had. He probably hit over 350. The guy dominated. And granted, he didn't speak any English, but he was a great guy.
It didn't matter.
You would see the denomination he would bring over into the stands, and you would see it every time over there by where he was in right field. Heck of an arm. Amazing to watch, fun to watch. I'm glad he got to come back and play a couple games. That was very cool. Was that last year or the year before that he came back for the Japanese series that we played against the Oakland A's to start the year, and
that's right.
And then called it quits, and that was very cool. But love to watch.
Fun to watch it.
Always
fun to watch it.
Number 1, like I said, it's Ken Griffey Jr. The guy is just. I still have a picture of when I went to Camden Yards of the home run derby that he hit in Camden Yards. I took a picture of the one ball that was like 480 feet or something, and he was just a pleasure to watch, just flying all over the field. Now it's a shame he had some, and it wasn't really while he was with the Mariners, it was more when he was with the Reds that he had a lot of DL stints that he struggled, but just a great guy to watch. And part of the reason why I fell in love with baseball was Ken Griffey Jr. A great guy, great swing.
Right, and I was going to ask you too that the question I had in my head since I knew we were doing this topic was Hank Aaron was one of the best home run hitters of all time. 755 is the number you just is linked with him for a good reason, right? If Griffey was more healthy in his career, back, knees, whatever you want to say, do you think he would have broke Hank Aaron's record?
You like to think it's a lot of ifs, unfortunately, and now towards the end of his career, he couldn't freaking hit the ball out of the infield when there were the last 2 seasons he played with the Mariners.
Cincinnati, was but
he, and
I got to see him too. It's in Philly, and he got like a standing ovation. Like everybody, the Philly fans get a bad rap, but man, they love Griffey.
There aren't many people in baseball anymore that are just universally loved everywhere you go. And I mean, you think of people, you think of people like Albert Pujols or someone who are towards the end of their career who people recognize.
That's true.
But it's tough. And I remember reading an article on ESPN way back in the day, and they talked about what if he made it. It's
tough question.
Amazing where he's at. You would have liked to see him at least pass Willie Mays or maybe get up to Babe Ruth. And now would he have passed Bonds or I don't know. That would have been pretty tough.
That would have been tough. He might have got Aaron. He's still one of the best players we'll ever see.
Yes. Yep.
Like you can tell.
Yep. And I was lucky to be able to see him. I was watching every second of his Hall of Fame speech. Just a great guy. I mean, I would love to see him come back and do something for the organization, but I don't think he's into that. So.
He was always well spoken to. I thought he would be like a broadcaster. Mm-hmm. I really thought he would be like an analyst. I enjoy listening to Chipper Jones. I even can stomach A-Rod at times. I think A-Rod has a Yankee bias, but he did play for the organization. Yeah. But some guys can do it, some guys can't. But the Mariners are fun, though. I always thought that they were a fun team. They always, they had guys like Norm Charlton and some of those pitchers that were out there. But the lineups are always
and I mean, and that's what people have been saying. This team that we have now, the next era maybe, is very fun to watch. A couple of the guys, Kyle Lewis, I mentioned earlier, he's got a bat. He can definitely hit it to both fields. Hits for average.
How's my shortstop doing?
Yeah, JP's a very good fielder.
Very good. Very good.
He's been hitting pretty well. He doesn't hit for power, but he's got his couple stolen bases. He'll be the guy of the future though. He'll definitely
think he'll hit the bottom of the order, bottom or top, because they were kind of messing around.
I think eventually he'll move maybe to the 9 hole.
I thought
right now
like
he's leading off. Yeah, right now he's leading off.
Okay.
But when I would think when our big prospects come up, he might move down unless he can hit for average.
I saw him in Reading, and it was Quinn 1, him 2. You should have just saw the speed from Quinn, but then JP would do a nice job moving him over. He's just one of those guys that does little things, but he's got so much talent. I hope he pans out.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite players when I heard about him, and he's Carl Crawford's cousin. If you didn't know that.
Yeah, and so I mean, we have this first baseman Evan White, who his bat, maybe because we pushed him a little quickly, is struggling a little bit, but he is one of the best fielders I've ever seen. You're going to hear that name getting Evan gloves White in the future. Evan White, wow. Great fielder. He's like a ballet when he's on first base there. Graceful. That I see him making moves. Yeah. It's so great to watch. Awesome. But yeah. So the prospects are one of the better in baseball right now. So I like to think in a few years, maybe we'll still be doing this podcast in a few years, and we can finally figure out, talk about a playoffs for Seattle Mariners. But
Derek gets his ALCS berth, and JP Crawford is hitting at the top of the order, and I'm going to scream.
Absolutely.
No, I like Gene Segura. I do like Gene Segura. So,
all right, let's get into talk about your Phillies. Absolutely.
Oh, there we go. All right. In 138 seasons, you're going to like this. They have a .472 win percentage. But, in fact, we did break through twice in 1980, led by the Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt, Steve Carlton, and others. Pete Rose, that whole crew. In 2008, I almost passed out. They saw Brad Lidge have a perfect season. That was like, I couldn't even talk. It was ridiculous. But no, they're just a frustrating organization. They're, growing up in the 90s, I can just say, and a lot of people probably can really are with me on this. You have very, very marginal average players out there. But you're a big market in Philadelphia. You should have JT Realmutos and Bryce Harper's. We can afford it. You
gotta pay him.
Gotta pay him, and that is what really I've told you many times I'm worried about, but we'll see what happens. No, but I think that the one guy that is basically, you think of Philadelphia and you think of him, it's Mike Schmidt. He's the all-time leader in home runs and RBIs, and not many guys are going to hit 548 home runs, by the way.
Right.
So I was a big Scott Rowland guy when he came up. This Alec Boehm reminds me of Scott Rowland a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to be Scott Rowland. What? Oh, yeah. So Scott Rowland is one of those guys that had the defense, but then he put it together offensively, and he ended up winning World Series when he left Philadelphia, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But no, those types of players can be, like we were talking about the Mariners, they're the guys that you need on your club. You need those types of guys. Maybe not the Mike Schmidts, but those types of role players. I don't know. I think Roy Halladay was a joy to watch, watching him for, God rest his soul. 21
Did you get to
10.
see that? Did you get to see that documentary that came out about him? Very, very tragic. ESPN 30 for 30.
I really don't. I really try hard not to cry during sports things, but this is a lot more than just sports, And I read the book, and with Todd Zalecki did a great job with it. It's not mine, or I would even tell friends they could read it, but I borrowed it from a neighbor of mine. But it is unreal of what his wife went through his career and what the
God
families
bless
go
her.
through. It's like, but he had issues, and baseball was his escape. But I will say to this day, and I know it's probably not my right to say it, but he should have flown that plane that day. He could be alive for his sons right now. And I'm not saying it was suicide. I'm not going to go and say that. But I'm going to say that he didn't have things in his system that were helping him fly that plane. So the bottom line is I did watch it. I enjoyed it, but it was hard to watch. And I'm happy I got to see him pitch because I went to see him pitch.
But that was a great team. That was a great team when they had Cliff Lee, another failed experiment by the Mariners, Cliff Lee. But
we get him, and then we get him twice.
Yes,
we trade Derek. The Phillies traded Cliff Lee when I was working for the Iron Pigs, and three names you're never going to hear again. But Lou Marson was a catcher, Jason Donald was a shortstop, and Carlos Carrasco. You might know that name now in Cleveland. He was a Phillies prospect. They just changed locker rooms that day because the Indians were in to face the Phillies, and that deal was then made. And Cliff Lee was then one of our best lefties that we ever saw, probably. But you're right. Yeah, Mariners in it. It seems like that happens with the Phillies and Mariners, though. Felipe Amont never panned out for us.
Yeah, back in the day. Well, that was
Felipe Amont.
That was when we traded for Cliff Lee the first time, right? I think that was one of the big guys we sent.
Was he the one? And Tyson Gillies? Tyson Gillies was another name.
And then, I'm not sure if you traded back for him or not. Or no, he might have went to.
Well, we signed him, or he didn't want to go to the Yankees, and he came to us. His wife didn't like New York, and I was like, all right, we'll take him again. What the heck?
But what a trio that was with Hamels, Halladay, and Cliff Lee. Whew.
And then Oswald came over.
No wonder they won. Yeah, Oswald, that's right. Oh, man, I forgot about Oswald.
And Joe Blanton was just the guy.
Just the fifth guy that we got to throw out there every 5 days.
He was a dude. That was great. Yeah, no, but I also had great memories at the Vet. I enjoyed going to see them play. I mean, ever since I was
that was one of my questions. Some examples of when you were at Veterans Stadium or Citizens Bank.
I mean, I could give you maybe my top three. I guess three would be we got to see my family and I and some neighbors actually. We got to see a pitcher named Jeff Juden, who was terrible in the 90s, pitch against Hideo Nomo in his debut in the States, right? And Juden hits a grand slam home run. The same game, Greg Jeffries, again, another Phillies kind of just average player, he hits for the cycle. And I'm thinking to myself, I just saw a grand slam by a pitcher and a cycle by a player. Wow. So that would be, I'll give that number three. Number two, I know what one is. Okay, two would probably be, I was 1 out away when I was 6 years old in 1989, and that's really dating myself. 1989, I got to see Doug Drabeck 1 out away for the Pirates, almost pitching no-hitter against the Phillies. And the Philly faithful stand and cheered on the last out, and the Pirates second baseman or our center fielder hit a ball like a line drive over the second baseman's head to break up the no-hitter, and we're cheering for Drabeck, and Von Hayes came out and booed the crowd and gave the finger to the crowd. Actually, it was crazy. And number one was being there, and I'll never forget it, 2007 with my parents in the stands, in the seats, and they won the NL pennant. I don't think I talked for 48 hours.
Yeah, I can't imagine the deafening noise.
The greatest part was I couldn't hear myself. I couldn't hear anybody around me. And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting there like Brett Myers just struck out Willie Mopena. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And then the next thing we know, the Mets have just lost 10-1 to the Marlins. And we know at that point, the Phillies know they're in. But just to see the guys celebrate, following guys like Jimmy Rollins his whole career. And there were some good guys. Rollins, Utley, Burrell. Burrell signed tons of autographs to my brother. There's just like I'll always say this. My favorite color growing up was red, and I really believe it was the Phillies, and that's not just something you cliche. I always will believe Phillies red, and as much as I get frustrated until I die, I just love the Phillies. There's just a connection with with baseball, and we all have said since we've done the show or started doing the show now, and for the audience to know that's how passionate we are. We just love our favorite sport,
Yep.
and
Always going to stick with our teams.
and that's the thing. And Charlie Manuel was another guy talking about managers. He had almost 800 wins, Derek, and we didn't even know who he was when he got hired. Mm-hmm. The team was great, but he knew how to push the right buttons. Dick Allen's going to be retired his jersey on Thursday afternoon, actually, and he had about almost 700 RBIs in his Phillies career. My dad, one of his favorite players. And just seeing Jim Thome playing there, guys like that, and now to the present day of course, Harper. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face that he's fun to watch, but there's certain players that don't need to maybe work as hard as other players, and he's been gifted with so much talent, from the age of 16. I love guys. I love leaders. I love JT Realmuto a lot. I can't say enough about how he's impacted this team. And you got to love a guy like Aaron Nola, who doesn't say much and just goes out and does his job. But yeah, I don't know if you had any other questions.
I think we'll wrap it up here. We're at over an hour.
Let's tell our listeners. Please listen. Please share with your friends. Next week, we're hoping to do another episode, a little more focused on the start of the NFL season, I think we were saying. And but we'll throw some baseball in because baseball will not die in our podcast timeout. There will be no timeout for baseball.
Yeah, we're gonna hit up a little bit of baseball to start, and then we're gonna head into football a little as that season's gonna be starting. But yes, as Joe said, please share. Thank you for all the support. Now we are going to start look for it in the next few weeks. Maybe we're going to be starting up a Facebook page to help support us and just to let you know what we have going on and whatnot. We will be putting stuff up on our Facebook pages for a few weeks just to smooth the transition a little bit. But we'll send out an invite. Please like our Facebook page when we get on and create it. Until then, please, once the video comes up, feel free to put a comment or a question in the comments. We'll be happy to get to it next time we're doing our podcast, which we believe should be next week at some point. We'll get to your questions, any comments. If you want to talk about the Phillies, you want to talk about the trade deadline, you want to talk about my Mariners or not, you're more than welcome to put any comments, questions in there, and we'll be sure to get to them. But thank you very much, Joe. It's been a pleasure, Derek, as always.
Thanks, Lindsay, for the graphics.
Yes, thank you for all your help, Lindsay, you helping us out. But until next time, this has been Derek Ano for Joe Azalina. Thank you for taking your time out with us, and stay safe. Take care.